And welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 150th take, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, so privileged, and yes, so honored to be with you all tonight. This is an amazing show. This is a milestone show, and it could not be represented any better with our amazing guest that we have tonight. And before I get to formal introductions of him, I do have to thank the people that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate unveiled the Liga Privada Unico Series Bauhaus as a European exclusive for the European market. The basic tenet of the Bauhaus architectural movement is that every object must have a purpose in design. The new Liga Privada Bauhaus Short Robusto pays extra attention to leaf placement within the cigar, intentionally designed to take our European aficionados through a newly curated experience. Bauhaus is a short Robusto that is wrapped in a rich, earthy Connecticut broadleaf capa, includes a bold Brazilian binder, and is completed using filler tobaccos from Honduras and Nicaragua. So check out the European market for the Liga Privada Bauhaus Short Robusto from Drew Estate. And tonight's show is also sponsored by Oveja Negra Brands, four unique companies who share a passion to provide innovative cigars for the next generation for cigar enthusiasts. Black Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, Dissonant, and Emilio are combining premium tobaccos with an artisanal touch. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock and visit ovejanegracigars.com to learn more. And welcome, everyone. We are so pleased to welcome you all in for our 150th take. It is my honor to introduce tonight's guest, who is, of course, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. The founder and president of Perdomo Cigars, Nick Perdomo Jr. Nick, how are we doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on your 150th show. That is a milestone.
It has been a long time in the making. I will say that for sure. I would be remiss if I did not thank all the amazing people that made up the previous 149 takes, which I've mentioned my guests on a number of shows, but there's so many things that I want to get to tonight, and I want to celebrate my 150th take in fashion. So I was so pleased and so honored when you agreed to do this show, Nick. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for the audience for staying up, us East Coasters. It's late for a lot of the guys. I'm glad a lot of the guys are tuning in. So thank you, Bear.
Oh, absolutely. So I kind of want to just start things a little light here, Nick. I'm really excited to light up my cigar, and something this I didn't tell you this before the show. I am smoking this cigar for the very first time, and I know it's been getting rave reviews from absolutely everyone. So I am stoked to try it. The new Perdomo Reserva Sun-Grown 10th Anniversary, which I believe you have as well. All right,
I'm going to join you, my friend. I got one right here. Okay.
I'm so excited about this cigar, and I've got the Maduro as well on deck, so we're kind of building for tonight. But I mean, this was a cigar. I mean, it was a long time in the making for you guys, and I mean we've talked quite a bit about it. I mean, it's been talked about, excuse me, quite a bit. But I'd like to give it a little bit more attention that it's due here right now. I mean, when you guys decided that you wanted to reblend it, as Noir and Sun-Grown were kind of being put to sunset for you guys. Those were great performing brands, I've heard you say before, but you wanted to kind of retweak this and everything. What was kind of the motivation behind that?
It was a two-step thing. One of it was I thought the packaging was a little long in the tooth. Sun-Grown and Noir had been out for almost 20 years, and we decided that we were going to give it a packaging change. This was back in 2018, and I said, you know what, I want to reblend this. We have some incredible tobaccos about 2 hours north of us up in the Jalapa Valley, and with these heavy gauge wrappers that I wanted to do, whether it be wrappers that were Maduro or Sun-Grown, we wanted to come up with really a new cigar, and we're proud. I've talked about this before. I got a tasting panel that's definitely seasoned vets, Bear. I mean, we got almost 370 years of experience between all of us, and for us to come to a consensus is pretty incredible. A lot of the guys out there have probably heard this, but this is probably one of the first times in our history that we actually had a consensus where everybody simply loved the new 10th anniversary Sun-Grown, and for that matter, the new 10th anniversary Maduro. We knew it was going to be a winner. We decided we were going to bring it out in January because our partners in the Netherlands were a little bit behind. They said we'll have this between February and March. Well, of course, COVID hit, and we had to wait, and we ended up releasing them at the end of August, and having a month of August, September, October, November, December, having 5 months. This is actually the biggest launch in the history of Perdomo cigars outside of Perdomo Reserve Champagne. The output's been incredible from our consumers and our retailers, and the demand on the cigar has been something we never really estimated. But what was really unique about the Cigar Bear is we actually had these in the aging rooms for over 13 months before we released them because of what happened, and it's hitting on all cylinders. I'm really proud of it. And I hope you enjoy it.
I'm very much looking forward to it, and I didn't have much opportunity to smoke it until now, just because, as you know, Nick, and it's been incredibly successful for you. It's been selling out like crazy. I mean, I remember watching an interview that you did, and I took part in another one where you literally had 2 cigars, and that was it. So, so it was being, it was every last bit of it was being shipped out to your consumers and to the retailers. And it's been wildly successful for you. So I mean, congratulations to you. Before I even kind of get into this, I think it's more than well deserved. 13 months in the aging humidor. I mean, were you at all worried with the extra aging process that would change this consensus that you all were so proud of?
A little bit, because we always age the cigars a minimum 6 months. You got to remember the fillers, binders, and wrappers we grow ourselves, so we follow our intense curing practices, fermentation practices, and our aging practices. So I knew the cigar would be actually a little more smoother if possible, because a little extra time in the age room certainly doesn't hurt. I don't think it was necessary, to be honest with you, because of the wear and care we take with each of our cigars. But it certainly didn't help. And with the demand that we've been seeing with our retailers all around the country, you talk about me only having 2 today. I have a whopping 7. Janine smoking one, my wife, with me here, who's sitting here watching, listen to the show. And our salesmen, God bless them, they've done such a phenomenal job. They didn't have samples for 3 months, and they sold millions of cigars with no samples. And that's real kudos to the Perdomo sales team around the country. They've done a fantastic job.
Uh, Absolutely. I mean, hats off to them. And like I said, I finally got the opportunity to get some, and we had already agreed to do this show tonight, and so I've been holding on to these cigars for a couple weeks now, and I've been chomping at the bit.
I apologize for me not getting you some. I should have got you some.
Oh, no apologies needed.
No.
I find, and I think you can appreciate this, considering you're the man who made these. I find that there's a lot of times where cigars kind of get overhyped in my head, and that doesn't necessarily play well sometimes. But I find that the patience is definitely rewarding. So I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to this. I've already a couple puffs in. I have to say, like in comparison to a couple of other blends that I enjoy of yours, the pepper that resonates on the retrohale is beautifully bright, and there's this really nice lush sweetness as well that kind of accompanies it, that isn't too far off some of my other favorite blends of yours, but definitely unique. So definitely there's definitely some different tobaccos in here that you were talking about. I've heard you brag about the Jalapa region specifically on previous times. Are you just really enjoying the tobacco that's coming out of that out of those farms of yours up there?
I really am. I've been growing tobacco there for 21 years, but I had really some incredible crops from 2014, 15, and 16 crop that I've been holding that I really wanted to use on a particular cigar, and that's how we came up with the new 10th anniversary. And we started with a farm named after my beautiful wife a couple of years ago, and I wanted to put some elements into that, a little bit topography, a little bit different up in the valley, up almost on the border up there. And together with our tobaccos from Esteli and Condega, I wanted to come up with something really different. And you hit it right on the head. You taste that sweetness, you get that spiciness. It's a really it really intertwines. It really it's a great balance, and I love it. I'm smoking one now. I don't get to smoke many of them. I just believe that, I know this sounds crazy, I own the company and everything, but I really want the cigars for you, and we want our consumers to enjoy them. And what's the old saying? Don't smoke your own stash. We gotta wait. Our German distributors were really angry at us, Bear, because They've been waiting for almost 6 months, and I felt bad about it. But I've always told our distributors, America first, and we made sure that we took care of our clientele in the United States, and now we're blessed. We're able to distribute them all throughout Europe right now, and it's been such a successful brand. I really got to thank all of you out there that are listening. I mean, it's really taken over. I would have never imagined how good the cigar's been really well accepted and received. A lot of people already talking about it. Cigar of the year here, cigar of the year there. I'm just happy that our retailers are happy and our consumers are happy. You can't ask for more than that.
I mean, this really is 2 years in a row where, I mean, it has been, I mean, the redoing of the ESV, particularly, I mean, the Maduro has gotten a lot of praise from some of my colleagues in the media, but just overall among consumers. And then with this kind of a back-to-back showing, I mean, you have to be. I know you're always incredibly proud of the work that you do, but I mean, you just have to be just over the moon about these recent turnouts, right?
I really am, and our greatest assets definitely our employees. Our employees have done a phenomenal job. You can imagine when you get in the top 25 with a magazine like Cigar Journal, which I have a lot of respect for. They literally test 1,000 brands from all over the world with 64 different tasters. It's really a real wide scope of tasting. And listen, you always want to be number one, but I look back at it and I look last year, Perdomo ESV gets number two, and this year, and then last year was Perdomo Habano, Connecticut. 2 years in a row, we come in number two out of the top 25 best cigars in the world. I got to be happy about that too. We always want to be number one, but it's like I was talking. I said, "Man, I wish we'd be number one." They said, "Nick, you're number two twice, 2 years in a row, with a tasting panel of 64 that tests cigars all around the world. You got to be happy." And I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. We're just blessed. We had a phenomenal 2020 as far as sales of cigars, and the company keeps growing, and we're really blessed. And with my son coming on board and everybody else, I am over the moon. I think you hit it around the head, and I want to thank everybody out there for that. That's a fact."
So, Nick, as we were talking about my employer at Michael's Tobacco, who you've been friends with for years, Mike Peacock, one of my favorite stories about Mike, and just I hear him say this over and over again in my head. It was just one of the funniest moments and best moments I've ever had with him. And as you know, and as I've recounted a couple of times on the show, he starts his day every day with a Perdomo cigar, and it's a time-honored tradition for him. And there was a time where I was opening on Saturday mornings, and so it was just Mike and I just kind of start the day, and he would always have his Perdomo cigar. And he in a very, very rare occurrence, he actually was running late one day, and I actually showed up before him. It was an unbelievable miracle because that never happens. And and so I was there, and I was smoking a cigar that wasn't one of yours, but I was smoking a cigar that was relatively new on the market, I think. And he comes in. He's like, "Hey, what do you we exchange greetings." He's like, "Hey, what are you smoking?" And he's like, "Hey, I haven't had that yet. What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, blah blah." And started talking about it. And I said, "Well, it's a good cigar to kind of start the day off. You want me to get you one?" And he just, and Mike Peacock, and for the people in our audience who may or may not know him, and just picture a man who's just plays his cards close to the vest, very stoic, has a good sense of humor, but very stoic. And he just looks at me deadpan, and he just says with this kind of jovial nature that I don't think I've ever heard repeated again since, "Bear, it's Perdomo time." And I nearly lost it. I was just like it was just one of the funniest moments in the world for me. And so of course I went to the humidor promptly and got him his customary Perdomo to start the day. Foolish me for suggesting otherwise. I apologize. I apologize to both him and to you.
Well, Mike's a great guy. I've known him for over 20 years, and he's a phenomenal retailer in the Dallas area, as you well know. And his son's doing a great job, Bob, over at the other store. They just do a great job, and they're great friends.
I know that they speak very highly and very fondly of you, and I know that they treasure your friendship for sure, Nick. So I know something you have been doing for a number of years. Something you have been doing for a number of years as well. And I'm kind of interested. I know that everyone kind of talks about it, and a lot of people have actually even heard you play, at the trade shows and everything. But your background in drumming, your background was in music before you kind of got into the cigar industry. You, of course, served proudly in the United States Navy before your career in the premium cigar industry. But I think was your first love music?
Well, I've always loved music. I still do. Drums to me right now are the biggest stress reliever for me. You hit them, it's nice. It's like you're banging on something, and it relieves a lot of stress. And I still love it as much as I ever have. And I put my headsets on. I got a big PA system in my office, and it's nice to be able to play drums to great music. And sometimes I'm fortunate enough to play with some cats that are really good. And hey, this old guy still enjoys it very much.
That's really wonderful. When did you actually start playing? When you were a kid or
Yeah,
later?
oh yeah, I started 50 years ago, believe it or not. And, played in a lot of different bands and jazz ensembles and so on. And now I'm happy to play, Journey and Led Zeppelin and Tears for Fears and things like that. And it's still a lot of fun for me. I have 3 drum sets in my office. So I still have my original 1971 Ludwig drum set that my mom and dad bought me. And a good friend of mine with Sonar Drums and Mapec Drums, Jerry Goldson, was kind enough to refurbish it for me. Thank you for that, Jerry. And it looks pristine. I still have it in my office next to a Polaroid picture of mine when I was 11 years old playing.
Um, so that was actually going to be something I asked you was, Pearl gets a lot of play, Ludwig is a very, Tama, Yamaha. What do you, have you played them all, or do you kind of stick to the same brand?
Well, I have a Ludwig set. I have a Pearl set. There's some great drums out there. There's a good, Jerry was great enough to give me a beautiful Mapex snare drum from my friend Jeff Hamilton, who's probably one of the greatest jazz drummers in the world. And there's so many great drums out there. But you got Sonar, you got Mapex, you got Pearl, you got Ludwig. There's just so many great drums. So right now, what I like to play is I got my big Pearl set. Eventually, I think I'm going to get a nice Sonar set, and those are probably my 3 favorites right now.
One of my very good friends, Eric Gustafson, who I know enjoys your cigars as well. He, because I've bought a number of them for him over the years. But he's also a drummer as well. He'd be really upset with me if I didn't ask you what kind of cymbals you also used. Are you a Zildjian guy?
I was for many years, but now I'm playing with Sabian, Andy Zildjian, who's the president of Sabian, has been very kind to me, and I really enjoy their stuff. Sabian. Look, Zildjian's a great cymbal, but I'm really happy with the Sabian hand hammered stuff that I'm playing with right now. It's fantastic.
Sabian's something that I of course know up next to nothing about drumming per se, but I've heard a lot of renowned drummers and give a lot of praise to Sabian over the years, and I think they're kind of slowly taking a huge footprint away from Zildjian, because Zildjian just has dominated cymbals for literally hundreds of years, because they've been around for literally hundreds of years. But it's interesting to hear a lot of musicians kind of drifting over to Sabian and everything, and I think it speaks to the quality of the product that they're kind of putting out.
Oh yeah, very good, excellent products.
Well, Nick, that kind of leads us into tonight's major point, which of course our major point is brought to you by Wood Butcher Maine, introducing durable and attractive wooden creations for your kitchen, backyard grill, and home using native Maine wood and other exotic wood species. Wood Butcher Maine's products include butcher blocks, cutting boards, coasters, grill grate cleaners, and an El Oso Fumar favorite, the red oak cigar ashtray and cocktail coaster, plus many more. The Wood Butcher Maine's team's passion for food, the pine tree state, and craftsmanship of the highest quality show in absolutely every piece. Visit woodbutchermaine.com. Yes, that's woodbutchermaine.com to learn about the current collection. So, Nick, I kind of dubbed this major point because you have. We could literally be here for days talking about the incredible journey and story that makes up Perdomo Cigars. But I kind of dubbed this section the Perdomo story that Bear wants to know. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit in the green room, but I have a number of subjects that I kind of want to hit on that I think are I feel are very important. And I'm just interested to hearing a little bit more from your perspective on it. So the first thing is, and this is something, and again, this is my opinion here talking about it, but I think that the quiet influence that you've had in the cigar industry has been quiet for too long. I feel like you do not nearly get enough credit as you deserve. You've built up an incredible brand. We've already mentioned the Perdomo Army tonight, and the incredible following, consumers and retailers around the world that cherish the incredible products that you make that we're enjoying tonight as well. Um, but what a lot of people don't know, and I feel it is a shame, is the fact that you have actually helped build and help start a lot of the found what we would consider pillars in the industry today. And it was with your help, your assistance, your guidance that helped bring a lot of brands and industry icons to the to the status that they hold today. So I kind of wanted to explore a couple of these. And with that, I wanted to, I asked a number of people to provide me with some thoughts about you personally. And I'm going to end it with one that I will quote personally. The rest of these were done anonymously. I said, I want to just ask your opinion about what do you think of Nick Perdomo? And here's a couple that I've got. One person said he's very opinionated, but without a doubt backs every single word that he says up 100%. Brilliant businessman. He's just like his cigars, reliable and consistent. And from the late Jano Ozgener, Nick's a genius. So how do you, before we kind of dive into your influence in the industry here, Nick, how do you feel about some of those quotations?
Well, they're touchy, you know. I don't know if I'm so opinion. I think I get a bad rap a lot of times. Look, I love to hang out with a lot of my competitors. A lot of times I can't. I think there was a big misconception in Nicaragua in the early 90s. He doesn't like to go around and, you know, hang out and drink beer with us. You know, my father wasn't well at the time, and I wanted to spend as much time as I could with my dad. And I'm a big family guy, as a lot of people know. But I mean, there's some great. I mean, for John Oscar to call me a genius, I'm certainly not. But you know, I think probably the nicest compliment is someone who said that I'm like our cigars, reliable and consistent, and that's very important to me. You know, listen, I had a great example from my mom and dad, and a great example when I served in the military on reliability and so on. And I think today, you know, it really leads me to be better and better in the cigar world, and as a family man, as a father, and as a husband also, and as a friend. So I think those are kind attributes. And listen, I thank all everybody out there who said the kind words. It's probably hard because most of the people you probably asked were competitors. Competitors don't like to talk too good about people. And listen, in my stage of my career, I've been doing this for 3 decades. I have a lot of respect for my competition, and really respect for everybody out there that really smokes their cigars. I love our Perdomo Army. They've been consistent. And listen, we really don't advertise much. I mean, really, the people that built our brands were all those retailers worldwide, and those consumers out there that have supported them. And from the bottom of our hearts, not just mine, you know, thank you for that.
No, you have really built up an incredible legacy over almost 3 decades here, Nick, and the legacy that runs deep within the cigar industry specifically. So I mentioned the late Ozgener a moment ago when he called you a genius, and this was from a time that you guys worked together hand in hand, specifically in the La Anniversary line, uh, years and years ago before they even sold to General, obviously, a number of years after that. And CAO, I mean, for a lot of people today, CAO is a brand that's part of the General portfolio, and it still has that iconic kind of reverence about it. But it was really built on, much like your own brand, a hugely loyal consumer base. And when you started working with the Ozgeners, they were about just as hot of a brand at the time, as anything else on the market. Can you explain like how that actually went down, and how you ended up working with alongside with them, and how you helped build their brand to what it is today?
This was so many years ago. This was during the time of the Dallas Big Smoke, believe it or not. So that tells you how many years ago. It's probably about a little over 20 years ago. And John Oscar called me up and said, listen, we're making cigars in Costa Rica. Our cigars are really, really hot right now, but we just can't get production. We know how you make cigars. Would you be interested? And I said, sure. We took their production from 275,000 cigars to over 3 million cigars in 18 months. And they were hitting all cylinders. So you're right, Bear. That was probably the hottest brand in America right after the boom. And I was proud to be part of that. You know, the greatest president of the world, Ronald Reagan, said, it doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as the job gets done. And I'm really happy that we got to help a lot of people. I believe in karma, and I certainly believe in God. I believe that if you do good by people, good comes back to you. There were a lot of people in Nicaragua we helped out. My father was really influential in that. And you know, with the CO adventure, it was a great ride for a long time. And then they sold the company, and we decided that you know, prior to that you know, we didn't want to deal with something like that. We were happy, you know, making the cigars. There was a certain way we wanted to make the cigars for them, and they wanted to go a different avenue because eventually they wanted to sell the company, which is fine. So they went with another manufacturer, and we were good with it too because we were growing exponentially at the same time. In reality, like anything, you know, our priority was our brand. So it was a great marriage, and we were, you know, unfortunately Jono passed away, but I still periodically talk to Tim, and I only wish the best for them. And they did a great job while they were in the industry, and I'm happy that they were happy with us making cigars for them.
You know, one of the other quotes that I didn't mention was, you mentioned about the Ozgeners fan of your work and how they came to you because of the production difficulties that they were having elsewhere. You know, another person mentioned about described you as relentless, continually and undistractingly involved in every single step of the process. Now that's a lot of steps because I actually got this number straight from your website. There's 3,054 steps, if I'm not mistaken, that take your cigars from seed to what we're smoking right now. And that includes all the packaging, marketing, and cellophane and everything. That's a lot of steps to keep your eye on. But yet you still manage to build some of these incredible relationships and help build some of these brands. Are you having trouble finding your lighter?
My earphone box, that little white box. I just had it with me. Hold on a second, because
no problem.
There it is. Okay, now I hear you. These things don't last good when it comes to Wi-Fi. But you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely, 100%.
Perfect. And I'm sorry, I lost your question. If you could repeat it again, I
appreciate
it.
What I was saying was the fact that another person had described your relentless attention to every aspect and every step of the process. And if I was not mistaken, there's 3,054 steps that make up a Perdomo cigar from seed to what we're smoking right now. And that's a lot of steps. And in the meantime, you still helped kind of build some of these brands that we were talking about. Another one, which is incredibly popular still to this day, is much like CAO, but a much different path than CAO. Not too dissimilar, but a different path nonetheless. Drew Estate. Jonathan Drew has recounted that he actually spent many a nights on, you know, at your own home as he was kind of learning the business, and you brought him in, welcomed with open arms, and helped show him the ropes. And now look what that company is. I mean, that has to make you incredibly proud on a number of levels.
Oh, sure. And I'm very proud of Jonathan. He worked hard, and listen, I remember when he was a young fellow, he didn't really know much, but he was like a sponge. He wanted to learn. And my father was there, I think, very influential in his life. I think they even have etched in glass a mural of my father in their factory, my dad. And listen, you got to give everybody a shot. I was one of those guys who started out of a garage. And I just believe you have to walk the walk before you talk the talk. Yeah, I'm relentless because, look, at my stage in my career, Bear, the only thing I really care about is that our consumers are happy and confident with smoking each and every Perdomo cigar, and it's going to be consistent. And I want our retailers to be extremely confident to be able to sell a Perdomo cigar. Nothing makes me more happy when someone says, you know what, I've been smoking cigars for 20 years or 20 days, and I've never smoked a bad Perdomo cigar. I think that's the reason we work so hard, you know?
Absolutely, and I definitely echo the sentiments. Like I was telling you, that I'm proud to say this on the show. I was telling you this before the green room. We're going to get into the makeup of Perdomo cigars here in just a few minutes, but um, I'm proud to say that I've smoked hundreds of your cigars in my smoking time, and I can honestly say this with a straight face and complete honesty. I've never had a poorly constructed cigar made by Perdomo. I mean, it just has never happened, which is just, I mean, is an incredible feat when you're talking about a man-made product.
Well, thank you for that. We make a lot of them, and it just shows the hard work and the dedication that our workforce has in Nicaragua and in Miami. I just think in our salesmen around the world, look, it takes 10 years to get a customer, it takes 3 seconds to lose one. We really think about that every second of the day. And I'm very picky, and I think our consumers and our retailers should be equally as picky. And what I want is I just want to have a product, and when you buy a box, everything performs to your liking. And I think that it's not only deserving, it should be that way. And even though it's a man-made product, um, I think you can perfect things if you continually be relentless about it. In other words, when we make a cigar, we just don't make the cigar, put in an aging room, and color sort it and send it out. We go through a 17-step checklist that we do on each and every cigar. So what that means, Bear, is that we actually manually check each cigar 17 times by 17 different specialists, whether it be a wrapper specialist, a filler specialist, a blending specialist. Every single cigar is draw tested, checked for the amount of turns, colors, blending. I could go on and on and on. And even after the cigars have been boxed, banned, and cellophane, we have a circle of trust of 4 finals. You can see it on the bottom of the box. They actually take every cigar out and recheck everything to make sure the cigars are perfect. And I think that's why we don't get hardly any complaints. Matter of fact, every complaint comes to one guy. It's me. A lot of times, and I call people, and a lot of them will tell me, "Oh, you're full of shit. That's not you." And I'll say, "It is, man." I'll say, "Okay, I'm an employee of the company. I just want to see what's wrong." And a lot of it's operator error. Tearing a band off a cold cigar, not actually cutting the cigar. Oh, I thought the cigar had a hole in it. Lighting a cigar like on a corner, like a cigarette. That's why I started that YouTube channel at Perdomo Cigars to really try to teach from A to Z. And Bear, it really doesn't matter if you smoke cigars for 3 days or 30 years. I've noticed a lot of people incorrectly cut their cigars and incorrectly light their cigars. And a lot of the time, I think it's because they're in a hurry. But why do we smoke cigars? We smoke cigars for enjoyment. We smoke cigars for relaxation. There's no hurry. When I sat in my patio with my wife to light up a cigar, we're in no hurry. If we were, we wouldn't be doing it. We just want to relax and enjoy, what we do. And we want that same enjoyment to be able to be for you, the consumer out there. We know how expensive cigars are, and we know that your time is very, very precious. So because of that, our team really looks into that. And I really believe relentless is the right word, because I believe our whole team is extremely relentless. And they really want the best. If there's a problem with a product, people take it very personally at our company. It's a handmade product. Oh, it can happen. No, we don't take it that way. We, satisfaction guaranteed. That's been our motto for 29 years, and we're going to continue that. We're working harder and harder to try to produce the best cigars that money can buy. We won't stop that.
A lot of the words that we've been talking about in the last few minutes, relentless, picky, can also be described for this third person that you helped along the way and helped you along the way. You talked about how, Jonathan Drew was that kid that wanted a shot and you gave it to him. And because like you said, full circle, you were that kid at one point that was going into shops and saying, "Hey, give a kid a shot." And one of the shops you stepped into who did give you a shot, and it's ended up being an amazing relationship over the last 25 years, is two guys with David Garofalo. You guys have built an incredible relationship. In fact, you've made some cigars for him, and not to mention the last project which you did this past summer, which is you did the famed firecracker for him. Talk a little bit about the relationship that's been built over the last 3 decades with him.
Well, Dave is a special guy, like everybody in the cigar industry knows. You want to talk about a genius? That's the genius right there, if there ever was one. I mean, the guy, everything he touches turns into gold. And I'll tell you why, because he works his butt off, and because he's very relentless, and because he cares also. And I always say he's like my brother from another mother. He's just a wonderful human being to top it off. He's another one. He cares about his workers and his consumers. I remember during the boom, Dave would help retailers around that couldn't get cigars. And one of the things I always tell retailers about United Cigars and Oliver and all their hard work is it's exactly why you should be buying their cigars, because of a guy like David. It doesn't matter he's a retailer. He's a retailer. He's helped other retailers become successful. We didn't have to do it. And God, why wouldn't you want to support a company like United? And I mean, they work their asses off and they do a great job. And I'm proud that we've been selling Dave cigars for decades. And listen, you know, when you can get into a store like that that demands the best, for them to have your product, I mean, it's a big thing for me. I'm very proud that we sell the Two Guys Smoke Shop, and I'm even more proud to call David Garofalo my friend.
You know, one of the things I really wanted to talk about tonight, just kind of turning the subject just a little bit here, but you know, we talked about those are three outstanding stories of people that you've worked with closely over the years, and that's just a tiny fraction of the people that you've worked with. But and one could definitely argue, in fact, I'll go ahead and say it, you definitely have changed their lives for the better with what you've done. But again, that's a small fraction of what you've done, because you've changed a lot of lives. You know, Perdomo Cigars employs literally thousands of people in Nicaragua, in the town of Esteli. And when you first got there, you know, I heard you recount, you know, one of your first visits down there, but you like there was nothing. There's two cigar factories, and there wasn't much of a town. Now this town is fully developed, so many jobs available, so much commerce, dealerships, car dealerships, hotels, restaurants. I mean, it is really blown up in the last 30 years, and that's a no short order of what Perdomo Cigars has done. But there's a particular story that I wanted to focus on. You know, as you know, Nick, I'm a huge fan of the documentary Hand Rolled, which you were a part of. Loved the interview parts that where you were featured. But there was another man who was featured in that documentary, who happens to be an employee of yours. His name is Jose Benito Landero, and there's a very specific thing about him that many people might find unusual considering the industry that he works in. He's blind. You know, he's worked for you, and he has a family, and he supports his family by the work that he does with Perdomo Cigars. So I know that there's a whole story about him and about the blind community in Nicaragua. I'd love to hear what Perdomo Cigars has done for them.
What happened was, several years ago, I was watching TV of all places at my home in Esteli, and I started seeing about the depression rates and the suicide rates of the blind in Nicaragua, and it really bothered me. And I thought, you know, even though eyesight is so important to tobacco and cigars, well, so is touch and feel and hearing and so on. Everything, all your senses are very important. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to start employing and training blind people to do certain things that I thought they could do. For example, I thought they could stretch tobacco and sort it and select it by the texture of their fingers and their sense of smell. I thought I could put them in the box factory where they could follow the lines in the grain of wood and be able to sand wood and do different types of things. I thought, let's give them a shot. And today we're proud to employ 37 people that are, and they do a wonderful job. I mean, they can't see the product, but they can stretch it. And they know exactly how far they can stretch these tobaccos, whether they be fillers, binders, and wrappers. They can feel with the texture of their fingers, the fermentation process and how far it is. They can feel, because we use a braille system where we can actually use pieces of wood where it'll tell them how many inches the tobacco is. They can feel it with their fingers, and they'll know exactly when to devein the tobacco and exactly what part of the process is to do it. And I'm glad that they've done a wonderful job. To me, it's not a handicap. To me, it's a blessing that I have them with the company. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of our company is, you know, our average worker has been with the company almost 20 years. We've had almost 700 people retire from the company, and we've taken care of them. And I just think that people that have a handicap can work through it and you can train them. And it must be very demoralizing when you're sitting at home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and nobody can give you a shot because you have whatever handicap you have. And I'm proud that it's not just me, it's our company where, our guys have to train these guys too, where they took the time to train them. But I'll tell you one quick story that's pretty incredible. And Jose's one of them. I noticed that he would walk from the pre-industry to the bathroom. And I asked him one day, I said, how do you do that? He said, I count the steps and I count back. And if I need some assistance, somebody always assists me. But I know there's 53 steps from my stand to the bathroom, and there's 2 steps that I have to climb. And I know I walk, and if somebody's in it, they'll help me, but I know exactly where I need to be at. And it's pretty incredible when you think about how people can do stuff like that. It really is. So I'm glad we went able to do that. That hand roll project was really nice. It was one of the, when they had asked me 2 questions, it hit me like a bucket of ice water. They asked me, did I suffer in business? And I said, of course I did. I said, there were times I had to eat at my dad's home because I had no money. Everybody that starts has to struggle. If they don't, something's very strange. And the next question was, what was the hardest thing you ever had to deal with in your business? And I said, it was the death of my dad. And I never really got to mourn the death of my dad. And I ended up I cried. I started crying. I couldn't stop. And then you can envision I'm sitting in this position in front of me. There's 780 women sorting and selecting fillers, binders, and wrappers. And 3 of them see that I start crying. I go, let's stop this. And they're like, no, let's keep it rolling, right? And when they started bringing me the Kleenex, it made it worse, to be honest with you. And but I'm blessed to have such a great work staff, and really not just in Nicaragua, but here in Miami, and really having just such a great sales team and a great group of consumers worldwide that have supported our product together with our retailers. I have a lot to be thankful for, Bear, and I'm very blessed. That's the truth.
Nick, it's really funny describing your experience in that interview, because as you and I were talking about before the show, and I said I was going to mention it, so I will at this moment. This is an incredible moment for me, to be able to sit down with you on my 150th take, a great milestone for me, but to sit down and have this conversation with you is really personal to me. I was noticing someone in our chat who said that Perdomo was the #1 cigar, that for one of the first cigars that he tried and fell in love with, and that's what he smokes to this day. And while I certainly smoke a lot of cigars and enjoy lots of different brands and everything, Perdomo has a very special place in my heart because it's been very interwoven in my journey. Before I worked for My Peacock, I worked for another retailer in Fort Worth, Texas, Perry Tong, Pop Safari, as you know as well. And talk about giving a kid a shot. I knew I loved cigars, and I needed some part-time work, and he gave me a job as a waiter, and he realized pretty quickly I was a pretty shitty waiter. But he did notice what an incredible job and how much I loved being in the humidor talking about cigars with folks. And my experience at the time was, minuscule to it is now. And especially the company that I'm keeping right now, I still don't know very much, but by comparison. But what I did know at the time was that a cigar that I could continually hand out and it would perform time and time again. And it was a great experience. And it was a cigar that I love smoking, were Perdomo cigars. And so knowing that was kind of where I started in this industry, and here I am with my own show, 150 takes in, and sitting down with you is incredibly personal for me. And this is a beautiful moment for me. So again, I want to thank you one more time for sitting down and having this conversation with me.
Thank you, Bear. Like my late father said, everything is attainable in the greatest country in the world, in the United States, and you worked your butt off. That's why you got 150 episodes, and I'm really happy that I could be part of it. Thank you.
And it's that quote specifically, along with other quotes in during this hand roll documentary, Nick, that I kind of wanted to make note of, because for a long time I've smoked your cigars for a number of years. I even met you a couple of times before I witnessed this documentary and everything, and you're always very, very kind, genteel, very approachable. but I still had this very much, I guess the word is mystique about you, you know, always dressed to the nines. And I know we're going to talk about why you always wear a suit here in a few minutes, but it, and this is 100% on me and nothing about you. Like I said, you've always been an approachable person, but I always held you on in regard to where I just was like, there was just this mystique about you that I didn't understand. And when I witnessed that interview in Hand Rolled, it was an incredibly eye-opening experience for me personally, because as an admirer of yours and the cigars that you've made for years and the experiences that I've had with Perdomo cigars, I was I was just as touched as you were when you were talking about the words of your, the memories of your father and how rich those memories were in that moment. As you said, you were very emotional. You're caught very off guard by it, and I was too, because again, my entire view of you all this time had been Nick Perdomo in the suit and the incredible cigars that he makes, and here he is in a Perdomo T-shirt. I'd never seen you in anything but a suit, and you were talking about this incredible memory of your father and everything. If we could talk for a second about Nick Perdomo Sr., he passed a lot of words of wisdom over the years to you, and some that you've shared tonight, some that you shared during that interview, and have shared in other interviews that I've been a part of. Why is it that you, seems like a very silly question in retrospect, but why is it do you think that his words echo every moment of every day for you personally?
First of all, I love my father dearly, to say the least, and he was my hero, and he was such a great example to me, Bear. He was tough on me, but it was love, and I always knew it. And someone always asked me, "What was my greatest success? What led to my success?" And I said, "It was listening to my parents. I learned from a young age that nobody loves you more than your mom and dad, and my mom and dad were certainly great. My mother's 85 years old and still comes to work every day of the week. And with that great example, how can you fail when you really think about it? And my dad was just so influential in my life. He worked so hard, to make sure my mom could stay home. My dad had three jobs all through elementary school. I could hardly see him, and he worked two jobs all the way till I graduated high school. And how can you not have a work ethic when you have a father like Nick Perdomo Sr.? Not only was he was just a very fair guy, and he was a very loving guy. And I remember, he was big, and people were afraid of him. And he'd always go into the sorting rooms. He'd say, "Young men," and they'd be scared of him. "And Mr. Perdomo," and he'd say, "Can you do me a favor? Can you open that up?" My dad had great eyes, and he could color sort wrappers like you wouldn't believe. And he would say, "Yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, no, no, yes." And he would go to the boys. He'd say, "Boys, how much do you make a day?" And back in those days, they were making $8, $10 a day. My dad would grab a $20 bill, and he'd say, "You know what? This is for 2 days of work, and I want to thank each one of you for doing that work for me." All they did was just opened up tobacco. Their eyes would be as big as pinballs, and they were just so appreciative. And I think that's where we're humble, we're noble, because we're just so appreciative of what we have. Never in my mind would I have thought a kid starting out of a garage in 1992 would be able to do the things they're doing today, that we've done today. But really, I always say it, and it's really true. The greatest asset of Perdomo Cigars is certainly not Nick Perdomo. It's our workforce, and I'm really proud of every one of them, and they just do such a great job. I'm really proud of my son, because I was just as hard on him, because I didn't want anybody to say that's Nick's son. I wanted him to blaze his own trail and really do it on his own. But look, I always tell people whose wife doesn't need to be working right now, and a lot of people say your wife, and I say, yeah, and she works every day and comes in. It's just a work ethic that my family has, and our workforce has, and it just fires me up, and I love the industry more today than I ever have, and I've always loved it. So who would have thought that at my age now they still love it? And I really do. I love it. I love seeing the consumers. The last 4 months I've been on the road nonstop, and it's been wonderful. And everybody's out there. You can't fit a crouton in these cigar stores because people are so happy to see you, and it's really been an honor, and just such a privilege. That's the right word. Sometimes I got to pinch myself, honest to God, on how I do it. A lot of my competitors will say, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you travel. I always say, I don't know how you can't. These are the guys that put food on our table, and I'm real cognizant about it, and I'm real appreciative about it. And look, nobody comes to me and says, I'm going to a funeral, I need a box of cigars, or I'm getting divorced, I'm gonna get screwed, I need a box of cigars. Everybody's happy to see, and you know, the compliments you get, I mean, literally, it makes the hair on my arms stand. I'm just so thankful for it, honest to God.
You know, it's interesting, Nick, you know, and that's something that I've heard from you on a number of occasions. You're incredibly, and it's 100% sincere and genuine. The respect that you have for your consumer, both your customers, because the retailer is in fact is your actual customer, but you pass that respect on to the consumer who ultimately purchases your product as well. And I've heard you say that a number of times, and so it kind of just occurred to me just a moment ago that, I mean, was it because of the modest beginnings of Perdomo Cigars? Like you said, you started in a garage doing this as a side gig, right? You were trying to supplement your income. And is that ultimately why you feel like you have so much respect for the end consumer as much as your own customer, the retailer?
Absolutely. I remember the first time I saw someone smoke one of my cigars, and I walked to him and I said, Sir, you enjoying that cigar? And he gave me a one-word answer every time. He said, yes. I said, I'm the manufacturer. He said, that's nice. And I said, I hope you enjoy the cigar. And he said, yes. And he pulled the newspaper back over and ignored me. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Tommy Boy with Chris Farley. I turned around, I went like this. I was so happy. And my wife said, well, you know, what happened? I said, oh, the guy was a jerk, but he loved the cigars. And I was happy. I think when you build something and you have to work so hard for it, you're so appreciative. And still to this day, that's why I I personally call everybody if they have an issue. I personally answer everybody on Facebook and Instagram, and every email. You can ask Juan Lorenzo or anybody. I personally do it. Sometimes I'm into the wee hours of the morning. My wife will tell you that. We're sitting at dinner, and I'm what are you doing? I'm answering a consumer. It's my life. It is. Those are the guys who feed my family. Those are the guys that I'm sitting in the car. If it's thanks to them that I have it, I don't take that lightly. And when someone wants a question, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm at the gym or whatever, I'll take a break and answer that question for that consumer. I want him to be satisfied. Not only is he deserving of it, but I want him to really truly enjoy a Perdomo product and see the pride and passion it was taken into making that product from every single worker at Perdomo Cigars, whether it be in Central America or in the United States, because every single one of our employees have something to do with that cigar. You know, so it's important for me. I think that when you start so meagerly, you know, so humbly, that if you're not humble, something's wrong. My dad always said, check the ego at the door. No reason to have an ego. I certainly didn't find a cure for cancer. I make cigars, and I'm blessed that people can enjoy something that I love doing.
You know, it's for, I mean, for a lot of folks, you know, the Edition de Silvio is like is the ultra premium cigar offering that you offer, but Silvio is actually the name of your grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That's true. Yes, sir. Yep.
I
So we made that in honor of him. Yeah.
No, please.
No, we made that in honor of him. You know, we utilized the top 1% of our crop. We started that as soon as my grandfather passed away the year after. Started that project out in 1998. And I've been religiously making 50,000 cigars of those, because you just can't make many of them. I used them in traditional shapes that he enjoyed. And so that's why you have a Robusto, a Toro, and the Churchill, and a double Corona, which is a 7.5/8 by 50, because that was really the size. And I'm very proud of that brand. We can't make many of them right now. Believe it or not, we have about 3 years of supply, because we're repackaging the cigar, and because of everything that's happened, we've been on a big delay. But we'll have those cigars out again, and we've had those cigars literally in our aging rooms for over 3 years, and they're really the best of the best that Perdomo makes. And look, I'm proud of every cigar we make, from Fresco all the way up. I know how much, you know, we play on a level playing field we construct those cigars, it doesn't matter if the cigar is $3 or $30. We're going to construct it to the best of our abilities that God has allowed us to, and we just want our consumers happy.
So it's really, you know, that kind of took my next question. It's really good that it was really great to see that that Silvio got to see the beginnings. I mean, really the infancy of Perdomo Cigars before he passed. But I'm going to ask another variant of this question in a moment. But you know, if I know, no doubt he's looking down on you right now. But if he were here right now, what do you think he would say about what Perdomo Cigars has become?
I think my grandfather, his crystal blue eyes, would have a smile from ear to ear. And me and my grandfather were like this. We were tight. And my wife, God bless her, you know, she would see us talking in the back patio, and we'd be smoking cigars together. When I first married my wife, she spoke no Spanish. And she said, God, I really want to learn, you guys, what you talk about and so on. And we talk everything from politics to the world. And my wife diligently took a very constructive English course. And today my wife speaks, you know, totally fluent. And today, you know, after all that she's learned during that time, she actually got to speak to my grandfather and my grandmother. And that's a testament to the relentlessness that my wife has, not only being a great wife and a great mother, but just someone who always, you know, really pulls the same way and really want to learn how to speak another language. And today she speaks fluently. She talks to our company in Nicaragua. She talks to all our workers, and she does a wonderful job. And listen, being here in Miami, it always helps to speak a little bit of Spanish. So she does a great job.
What a wonderful moment for her that must have been.
Oh yeah, she got to speak to my grandfather, my grandmother, and it was something. It was her dream because she knew how tight I was with my grandfather. We would sit on that bench and talk. I remember when I had my little factory on Flagler Street, I'd take aluminum foil. He used to like an 8x50 cigar with a dark wrapper and a bunch of Ligero tobacco in it. And I would pack 10 of them, 10 to 15 of them. He'd smoke 10 to 15 cigars a day. I never saw my grandfather without a cigar in his mouth till I saw him in the casket, and I still threw some cigars in there for him. And he would be so proud. I know. I agree with you, Barry. I think he's down in heaven looking down on me. You know, yeah, up in heaven rather. Prior to him passing away, you know, we had a small facility in Flagler Street with 27 rollers. He would freak if he saw the enterprise today. I mean, now we have 20 times the amount of rollers, and we have a staff of almost 5,000 employees. I think he'd be very proud. But again, he was always a lover of the United States and always told me that how can you fail living in the greatest country in the world? You work your ass off and you're going to get anything you want. And I never forgot that. And you got to be lucky, and you got to have a lot of faith in God. And these are things that, you know, I got from members of my family. So I was very blessed to be able to get that credence from them.
You know, speaking of that credence, it wasn't, you know, it was a lot of tough love along the way too. You know, your father loved you very much. That's evident. You obviously loved him as well. And I love the watershed moment that you shared in 1995 when you first called him up. I love hearing this story, but I want you to share it for my audience as well. In 1995, you hit your first million. You hit 1 million cigars. You told your father this, so I want to hear the story again.
Yeah, my dad was retired, and I told my dad, you know, that I'd sold 1 million cigars, and he said, "Well, maybe you're not so much of a moron." Just jokingly, he was saying that he was a funny guy, and he wanted to come. He wasn't really big into the retirement life, and asked to come on to work. And who better than a guy like, yeah, me and my dad, like I said earlier, we were like this. He was my hero, and we worked fantastically for a little over 11 years before he passed. And he was a pillar in the cigar industry. Let me tell you, my dad helped so many people out. Still to this day, on the anniversary of his passing, they still hold a mass in Esteli because people just loved him and revered him because he was so good. He just pretty much every baby carriage you see mothers having during that time that my dad was alive, it was my dad donated. And my dad, he just helped so many people because he grew up so poor in Cuba. And he saw how people had to struggle, and he said, "You know, I'm blessed that I can help." And since we're blessed that we can help, we should help people. And I've never forgot that. And Janine and I co-chair several charities and so on. And we think it's important to help people. We help our workers out. And, you know, I just don't like talking about it much. I just think that if you do something for charity, you do it because it comes from your heart. You don't have to publicize it or do things. I mean, we've been instrumental in helping our soldiers out for the last 20 years since Desert Storm 1. It's probably the first time I've talked about it in front of an audience. I do it because I serve my country, and I do it, you know, then, you know, people try to help the troops out and they have to have a press release for it. Well, if you have to do that, it's not because you want to help out our guys. You help out our guys because you genuinely want to. And I know what they have to go through when they go out to these countries where there's no women, there's no liquor, there's no nothing but a, you know, but they only get coffee and they can enjoy a cigar. And I literally have tens of thousands of pictures and letters of people saying, you got me through. And you want to talk about PTSD? This will help PTSD more than anything. I've had people tell me they were going to kill themselves and they got a cigar, you know, and they lit it up. And it just seems like the trail of smoke, once it was leaving their lips, was the stress that was going out from underneath them. And I never forgot that. And I always thought, you know, that would be a great thing to do. And I think we did a lot of great things, and I'm blessed. So I think you have to give back.
You know, heard a wise man once say, and I try to carry it through in things that I do, which is we're going to be talking about charity in a few moments as well. But, you know, if you're going to be blessed, be a blessing. And it's certainly it certainly seems like you've done that.
Well, let me tell you, I've been blessed. I think it's the right thing to do. I know it sounds like common sense, but listen, there's no pockets in anybody's caskets. If you can help your people, you can. I think we're instrumental in that, and the reason why our workers stay so long. We have an incredible profit sharing program where we divvy up our profits at the end of the year for our employees. They're extremely happy about it. Safe Harbor, extremely great 401k program that we have. I mean, listen, our workers have taken us to the dance, and I think we have to take care of them also. You know what I mean? And I think you get a much better employee who's a happy employee, and we're blessed that we're able to do that.
Absolutely. You know, you spoke about the reverence that people had for your father and his passing. You know, so I was actually, you know, I remember reading it at the time a while ago, and then I revisited it recently, which was your father's obituary. One of I'm assuming were probably several of them written in Miami, and you know, in the times that we live in now, everything's on the internet, which is great because it allows people to comment and, you know, give their best wishes to you and your family during that difficult time. And I went through some of those comments, and there were so many people in the industry, like you said, competitors. There was even a couple of judges, and of course your own aunt, his sister, with very touching words to say about your father. I mean, he truly touched so many lives. I mean, from top to bottom, family, non-family alike. And again, it has to be, that had to be a very warming moment in that tragic, and during that tragic moment for you.
Listen, when my father passed away in our home, we had over 50,000 people that were outside our neighborhood. And I remember they were selling water and sodas, and I was angry. And I said, look, if they're making money off the death of my dad, my general manager said, Nick, put his hand on my shoulder. He said, what would your dad say if he saw these young kids out there? And I would say, well, he would say they're good young capitalists. He said, you think your dad would be mad if they were doing that? I said, probably not, because he always wanted everybody to have a fair shake. And I said, you're right. But he was that well loved that you can imagine it's been since 2004, and they still hold a mass for him every year. And there's still guys that have his mass card from the first time he passed away still on their rolling tables. And I look at that, and it's hard not to bring a tear to your eye when you see the love that my father had. But my father never yelled at anybody. He would just put his glasses down. He was just a wonderful guy. Not because he was my dad. He was just a great human being. He just loved everybody, and people loved him, and he respected everybody. My father treated the guy who cleaned the garbage the same guy as he treated his general manager. And he always told me every single person is of importance, and every single person is relevant, and every single person's essential. I wish our politicians around our country would understand that people, everyone's essential, you know, and that we're big believers in that.
Geez, Nick, that touched me. That's beautiful that people still, that he means that much to people still, you know, almost coming up on 20 years of his passing. You know,
Yes.
I asked you a moment ago about your grandfather Silvio and what he would think if he was here today. And I know that his grandchildren was your father's pride and joy. He loved his grandchildren just as much as he loved you, if not more. You know, how do you think he would feel seeing your son, Nicholas III, in the business the way that he is now?
He'd be walking on water right now. He'd be so proud. He used to call Nicholas Mr. Wonderful, and he was a little, when he was a baby. My dad was such a good grandfather. I remember he'd say, you know, if I knew grandchildren were so much fun, I would have skipped you guys. He loved his grandchildren. He really did. He loved to spoil them. I mean, he was a disciplinarian on me, but boy, if I tried to whack the kids or anything or spank him, he'd jump in front of me and say, "Don't touch those kids." I'd say, "Dad, I gotta discipline them. If I don't discipline them, I'm gonna have gang members here. I gotta discipline. You know, spare the rod, spoil the child. You taught me that." He said, "Not in front of me." He never liked the grandkids getting spanked in front of him. That was for sure.
Talk a little bit more about your son in a few moments, but again, just to close out the subject on your father necessarily, but you know, it was very much his decision or great influence that led to this incredible move that the Perdomo Cigars made from that shop on Flagler Street, as you mentioned, to this little town that now everybody knows, but no one at the time knew, called Esteli in Nicaragua. And you know, when he took you down there, I remember hearing you recount the story of saying, "Hey, Dad, what are we doing here?" And he pointed down to your feet and he said, "Look at the grounds." And when he pointed this out to you, Nick, I mean, what did you have any idea what was in store for you for the next 20 years?
Definitely not. We started out above a police barracks, but yeah, and I'm a kid that when my family came from Cuba, we lived in a very small blue collar town in Baltimore City, which is now unfortunately a war zone. But you know, I remember meeting a police homicide detective from Baltimore City who showed me a picture and he said, "You know whose house this is?" And I said, "That's the house I grew up in." He said, "Who slept in that window up there?" I said, "My brother Billy and I." He said, "Well, I caught two kids there that were killed in that bedroom. Not so bad from a kid from Curtis Bay." And I said, "Well, I was blessed that the tutelage I had from my family, and I was also blessed to be born in this country where I was able to work ourselves out of that situation. When I grew up there, it was a great town. It was blue collar, mostly firemen and police officers, hard workers. But of course, like a lot of cities in America, you know, have gone downhill. Baltimore, unfortunately, was one of them. And I have a deep love for Baltimore because it's where I grew up until I was 11 years old. But you know, things happen.
You know, the move to Nicaragua, you know, that also kind of started the process that became the completely, I mean, vertically integrated. I think it doesn't even necessarily do justice to what Perdomo Cigars does. I mean, you guys are 100% vertically integrated. And when we say 100%, I mean, we're talking absolutely everything from the seed to the packaging to the final cigar product that's now in our hands and that we're smoking tonight. You know, was it your father's influence that led to this decision, or was it something that you wanted from the very beginning in those days in the garage when you first started out in the early 90s?
Well, in 1998, I was just getting tired of ill-fitting boxes that weren't sanded properly, tobacco that, you know, especially from, I'm not talking about, you know, but from small farmers that, you know, weren't treated the way they were supposed to be treated. I decided latter part of 1998 that we were going to become completely vertical so we could control our destination ourselves under the tutelage of our workforce. It was the best move that I ever made, and everybody supported me in the company on it, and it's really what kind of differentiates us from others, that we really handle. We even make our own staples. Forget that we make our own cellos for cellophane and emulsions and silk screens. I mean, we really touch on everything, and it makes a huge difference. And that's a lot of people visit us on factory tours always say, I've just never seen attention to detail like this. I just don't understand how you can't, but I can if you outsource everything and you can't really see it from the beginning to the end. And I'm blessed that literally we work everything from A to Z, and everybody on the team really pulls the same way. And I think my dad did a great job instilling the mindset of always trying to satisfy our consumers and our retailers. And we've never deviated from that. And vertical integration has been paramount for Perdomo. It's the best thing we ever done.
One of the things that is a staple, speaking of staples, a staple of Perdomo cigars, and it's really funny how late I came to this realization, considering how I feel that I'm incredibly well read on the industry and everything. But you all were really the first. It's a big trend now, but you all were really the first to do fermentation and aging in with the use of bourbon barrels. And this was also spearheaded by your father as well. Talk about how the introduction of this process made its way and has now become the backbone of your production.
We started this again in 1999. We got our first 12 barrels of bourbon barrels from a company called Buffalo Trace at the time. I think they're still in business. But
yeah, I'm drinking it right now.
Yeah, great. Well, what happened was it wasn't the infusion of bourbon that we wanted in the cigars, but bourbon barrels have a couple things that work really well with tobacco. First of all, they're not varnished, so the tobacco can breathe. The second thing is bourbon has a high sugar content, as we well know. What happens is when we deposit, whether it be the fillers or binders and wrappers, what it does, it gives an extra fermentation period because the free radicals of the alcohol penetrate because they're stuck in these barrels. They're also charred. The charring is like a filtering agent. It's charcoal is what happens. And basically what it does with the wood, the tobacco gets another fermentation period. It builds heat. And three things happen. Not only does it ferment, but the colors start caramelizing. The tobacco core of flavors start rising because you're really starting to taste the tobaccos, because those tobaccos are caramelizing and the sugars are starting to beat up to the top. You get darker cask of hues, which is exactly what we want. We want it to be a nice, even penetration of colors. And the bourbon barrels provide all that. It's time consuming, but I think it differentiates our cigars because remember, we actually develop the seed. We grow the tobacco in greenhouses. We grow the tobacco out in the fields. We cure that tobacco in our own curing houses under the watchful eyes of Perdomo employees. Go into our own fermentation. We ferment that tobacco at 100%, whether it's fillers, binders, and wrappers, or light, mediums, and strong tobaccos. And then every one of these wrappers, regardless whether it's a Perdomo Fresco or a Perdomo 20th anniversary, are going to go through the bourbon barrel aging process. And I think that if you follow those steps from A to Z, it's called the process. I called that process a long time ago, even before my friend Nick Saban used the word. And what that does is if you follow the processes of doing everything correctly, you're really going to have a happy consumer and a happy retailer. And that's what we do. And it's made a huge difference in our cigars. We're going on 22 years and almost 1,000 bourbon barrels that we have in the facility. It makes a huge difference. And we're really happy that we do it. And we actually do it on every single cigar we make on the wrapper process.
When you first told me that, Nick, about the frescoes actually even going through this process, again, it goes back to this model of consistency that Perdomo Cigars has been. Because anyone who's smoked a fresco will tell you that it's certainly a different blend than some of the other offerings that you have in your portfolio. Those cigars are just as consistent from the way that they look to the way that they smoke as the Edition de Silvio. It is really that consistent of a product, which frankly, you just don't see on the market today. They're called bundle or value sticks for a reason. They're less expensive. that they're typically, they're typically not as good of, good profit, either performance wise or look wise. But I remember you even telling a story about how you actually picked up a fresco once, and you're like, "Why is this a fresco?" And so one of your employees actually pointed out, like, "Oh, don't you see that blemish there on the small end of the foot there?" And you, I mean, you really had to look for it, and you still couldn't find it.
Well, I'm glad our workforce looks at all these pinpoint things. It's like a pendulum. If you don't keep it right, rock solid, the center on every product you make there, you're going to have deviations. And people are going to say, well, this product might not be as good as this product, might not be as good as, and what's going to happen is you're going to have chaos. And you can't do it. You got to make everything the same way, regardless of price point. Because if you do it that way, one guarantee is going to happen. You're going to have a happy consumer, and you're going to have a consistent product. And people are always talking about our construction and so on, and how it is. It's very important. The most important thing for us is the dosage and the blend and the flavor of the cigar to make sure it's consistent. That's why brands like Perdomo Reserve Champagne have been out for 21 years. That's why brands like Perdomo Habano and Lot 23 have been out for 2 decades. I just don't throw things on the wall and hope they stick. I want something that someone can smoke time and time again for years to come. It's like Brian Jensen in Houston at Great Discoveries. I'm sure you know him. He distributes a lot of cigars around the Texas area. Brian has religiously smoked at least a dozen Perdomo Champagne Churchills for the last 18 years. And I always try to offer him something different in my portfolio, and he has no interest. And he said, I've been smoking cigars a long time. I love a consistent product. This cigar tastes the same time in and time out. It's what I like. And that's music to my ears. That's exactly what I want to hear from our consumers, regardless of the cigar that we make. That the cigar tastes identical to its blend. And we're so pinpoint on that we don't even use regions or valleys. We use lot numbers in the actual regions and valleys, so we can pinpoint the exact blend, because nothing's more frustrating than smoking a cigar you like and smoking another one next time it doesn't taste the same, because tobaccos can vary from 10 feet increments depending on what side of the pitch it is, if you're near a stream, and or so on. So we're really pinpoint on that. And the second thing is construction. Cigars got to burn and construct and smoke wonderfully. If it doesn't, you're ripping off the consumer. And the third thing is every damn cigar should draw. And we have the technology today to make that happen. And it's a huge investment, but it's pennies on the dollar for what our consumers, deserve. I mean, we can draw test up to 18 cigars per second. There's no reason why any Perdomo cigar shouldn't draw if you have that technology, and we have it. So we're going to keep enforcing. We're going to keep trying to get better. And I'm always thinking of ways how I can make the cigars better, how I can make the flavors linger longer and roll on your tongue and do so and so on. I'm anal about it, because look, my dad left the ship in the right direction. I'm not going anywhere soon, but I want to leave that ship in the right direction for my son and for Arthur. So, I got a lot of responsibility on my back, and I want to make sure that the cigar moves ahead, because remember, it's got my last name on it, and I'm real proud of it. And I definitely don't want to disappoint my late father, my grandfather, anybody in my family for that matter.
You mentioned the word responsibility, and that's something that I was just about to lead to. So that was actually perfect. Lito Gomez of La Flor Dominicana said to me one time that he felt a responsibility to the end consumer, much like you do. One time someone told him, like many people in the chat tonight have said, "Oh, I love this cigar. I love this cigar. This is my cigar. This is the cigar that I smoke every day." And Lito Gomez said to me one time about someone who recanted a similar statement to him. He says he feels a responsibility to that person. It's clear that you have that same responsibility to them as well. And it's proven time and time again as we light up Perdomo cigars every single time, that consistency that we've been talking about all night.
No doubt about it. And that's a correct statement. And we want to make sure that we consistently deliver our cigars to our retailers. And we've been blessed. We've been able to do that. And we just have a wonderful team. And the guy who runs our operations, Nelson Kiva, makes sure that our consumers are getting their cigars when our retailers are ordering them. And we're growing because of that. And really the whole team together. We're just so united, and I'm just proud of all of them.
I think this is my last question before we go into a couple of fun segments, but you know, it's always, for the most part, I've always smoked smaller gauge cigars. It's always kind of been my wheelhouse. You know, the Robusto and Corona is kind of typically my jam for the most part. You know, with one fine exception being a lot of your cigars, which happen to be bigger gauges. Now, you've never shied away from that. You've always kind of embraced. I mean, before it became even a trend, you've never been afraid of the bigger gauge in manufacturing cigars. Why is that? Why were you never afraid of the bigger gauge?
Well, I prefer to make smaller ring gauge cigars. It's much more profitable, contrary to what people believe. You know, you can make 1,000 robustas with 32 pounds of filler, but if you're going to make a 6x60, it takes 70 pounds of filler. Hence, I can't charge you double for a 6x60 and a robusta. So people believe I'm making bigger sizes because I want to, but they're actually less profitable for the company. The reason is some of the dosage or blends that we come up with need bigger ring gauges to provide the flavors that you guys are requesting. I take a lot of input, not only from our sales team, but from you, the consumer, and what you're looking for. Look, Lanceros, it sounds great, are about 0.8% of all the sales. If I sold Lanceros, I'd be homeless. I have to sell stuff to what the masses are requesting. There are a lot of wonderful cigars in the 52, 54, 56, and up to the 60 ring gauge. And you have to work for what your consumers. Look at the 70 ring gauge market. It's continues growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger. I did it in the mid 90s at a brand called Immenso that I did 26 years ago. So there's no secret to the 70 ring gauge. And I remember starting the 60 ring gauge in the latter part of the 90s. And I thought, well, this will last for about 3 to 5 years. And today we have about 63 pairs or 126 rollers that are making 6x60s. You know what I mean?
Has 42, 44, 46s. The reason you don't see them on the shelves in a lot of instances is because people want bigger and bigger ring gauges because they feel they're getting more bang for their buck. And if that's what they feel, that's what we got to give them. And that's why we have a lot of the bigger ring gauges, because that's what our consumers are asking us for. And also, consumers are appreciative that we only had 6 pricing.
That, you know, we didn't increase our prices in that S chip. We absorbed that. I'm proud of that too. You know, those are things that you know, I think a lot of our consumers have seen and a lot of our retailers have seen, and that's why we continue expanding in the humidors, and I'm really proud of that.
That was one of the proudest moments for me as a retailer, is when you made that announcement that you were absorbing the S chip tax, and you weren't going to pass that along off to the consumer or to the retailer, and you were going to completely absorb that. It's one of the finest moments for me to share that with consumers. So I'm glad you brought that up again tonight. You know, Nick.
Yeah, I'm proud of that. We grew our company because of it.
That's wonderful. You know, Nick, I want to go into this next segment. Like I said, we're going to go and talk a little bit more fun here. And a lot of people have been screaming about, you mentioned the Immenso a moment ago. A lot of people have been screaming for you guys to bring that back. So hopefully that makes its way back into to humidors before long. But wanted to go into our next segment, which has been a really popular segment for a few months now. And it's, of course, brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. And this is, of course, our One Must Go segment. So for those in our audience who are unfamiliar with this segment, it's this is just for fun, guys. Nothing serious to be happening. We're just going to have a little bit of fun. And the idea here is I'm going to pose Nick here with 3 items, and and one must go. One has to be gone forever. So again, this is just for fun. This isn't really going to happen, but it's kind of nice to think about. And Nick, I told you before the show that the choices that you are going to be presented with are essentially trademarks of yours. So it's going to be hopefully a fun decision, but a little bit of a difficult one. So I wanted to go ahead and present it to you. So here are your choices for tonight. One must go. So the suit, the stash, which actually you've been sporting a goatee as of late, which is a little bit of a different look than we're normally accustomed to seeing with the iconic mustache that you have, or the single malt Scotch, which I know you're a fan of. So I went a little bit of alliteration today: the suit, the stash, or the single malt Scotch. Now one must go. Now these are all trademarks of yours, things
Single
that you
malt
love.
Scotch.
Easy for you, huh?
Yes. As much as I love it, listen, I wear a suit really, and I know a lot of consumers know about it, but my 85-year-old mother, who I love dearly, always, when we went to church, we'd always wear a suit and tie because my mom said, you have to give reverence to God. So I always want you to wear a suit and tie when you go to church. And when I would go and do events, I would wear Y of Air and things like that. My mom said, Nikki, she called me in the office. She goes, I want you to do me a favor. And my mom never asked me for a favor. And I said, yes, mother. And she said, I want you to wear a suit and tie when you go out and see your consumers because they deserve that respect. And I want you, that's the only thing I'm asking you for. And I want you to honor that. And I said, Mom, I will. And that's why today, 28 years later, I still wear a suit and tie everywhere I go because I don't want to dishonor my mother. And even to this day, somebody will take a picture of me in a cigar store and wherever I'm at in the United States. And my mother will always say, she'll text me. She'll say, Nikki, I'm so proud of you. You're wearing your suit. You're honoring your consumers. And how can I not honor my mother and not do that? So that's why I wear the suit. So that's never going to go. And the stash, I've had that since I was literally, 3 weeks out of the womb. I can't get rid of that. So, and my wife likes the mustache. So happy wife, happy life. So if I had to take the choice, as much as I like the single malt, that would have to be the one to go.
So, I mean, you were allowed to sport a mustache in the when you were a member of the armed forces, but I do remember seeing a picture of you in the Navy without one. Now, did you sport it quite often though, even though you shaved it from time to time when you were in service?
No, I never shaved it till my times in boot camp because you had to shave during boot camp. But as soon as boot camp was done, it came right back because in the Navy you were allowed to have a mustache. Matter of fact, back in the days where I was in the Navy, you were even allowed to have a full beard. But then they took that out. But yeah, you had a full beard in the early '80s. A lot of sailors had mustaches and beards.
Interesting. I didn't know about the beard thing. I know that the
Yeah.
mustache. My father was served in the United States Army, and I asked him. My father's always been clean shaven, always, which is it's always funny because I have this beard here, and he always wants me to trim it down. He never asks me to shave it. My mother asks me to shave it routinely, but my father never asks me to shave. He just wishes that I would keep it more trim. But going back to the suit though, I want to go back to a time, I believe it was the second time that I met you, and you were in town in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the Alabama game that was being played at the Dallas Cowboy Stadium at the time. And even though you were in town to watch a game, I don't think you necessarily wore the suit to the game, but you of course paid a visit to your good friend Mike Peacock. And of course you were wearing your famed suit and tie just before you're going to a game. So I have to ask, did you actually change, or did you wear that to the game as well?
No, I changed. I went back to an Alabama hoodie and an Alabama ball cap and some sweatpants and tennis shoes. But yeah, I just when I go visit my retailers or my consumers, my mom said always be in your Sunday best, and I'm very comfortable in a suit. But please, for the guys out there, don't think that I'm constricted because I wear a suit and a tie. Believe me, I'm the most knockaround Joe you'll ever meet in your life. A friend of mine, during my 40th birthday, this was many years ago, had a roast from me, and he said, I'll tell you what Nick Perdomo is. I remember that I had to paint my house down in South Dade. He lives 40 miles away. Him and I were in service together. I called him to help me in a paint party and to help me paint my house at 7 o'clock in the morning. So Nick lives a little over an hour away. And at 6:45 in the morning, he was sitting in my driveway. That's the type of guy he is. And he helped me paint that house. And all my friends, half of them never showed that I had requested for them to come, but he did. And I'll especially for my friends, I'll do anything for them. But yeah, I wear the suit and tie. It's just out of respect. It's not because I'm, I think I'm really a respect thing, and I think people know that.
Oh, and I can absolutely attest to that, Nick, as I
Thank you.
mentioned earlier, that you're incredibly approachable. always
Thank
have
you.
been. And I think just like I said, I think it goes back to your humble beginnings and working out of a garage and building the Perdomo cigars to what it is today. And you've built an amazing number of relationships over the years, and one of the most recent relationships that you've built is with a man that you shared with me earlier today, and that kind of goes into our next segment. But before, I just want to thank everyone for participating in the One Must Go segment. Of course, it's always, as I mentioned before, it's always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. Now, one of the relationships that you've built over the number of years is with the man that you shared with me earlier today, Javier Holtz. Going into our next segment, which we've done this recently in the number of weeks since my birthday when I announced this new segment, I'm asking my guests each week to spotlight and highlight a nonprofit or charity of their choice. As you mentioned, you're incredibly involved in a lot of charities, particularly in our armed forces, but you chose tonight to spotlight and highlight the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation. And it's your good friend Javier Holtz, who you've known for years, who kind of inspired this choice tonight. So before you kind of go into that story, I wanted to share something really great that's going on with this incredible foundation right now. I encourage everyone to go back on our Facebook page, and I'll post this link here in just a moment where you can actually choose to donate tonight. And I really encourage you to do so, because the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation is actually matching all donations up to $200,000 by December 31st. So what a Merry Christmas gift it'll be for this foundation. So please, if you can, we ask that you give generously and give often. And we ask that you give tonight to the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation. So I'll let you talk a little bit about Javier and why this foundation is so close to your heart.
There, I lost you. Janine?
Can you not hear me, Nick?
I hear you now. Okay, I hear you now.
Oh, I was just mentioning about the matching that the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation.
I heard that part, yeah.
So I'd like for you to share now your relationship with Javier and why you chose this foundation to spotlight tonight.
Well, one of the things is because diabetes kills so many people, and Javier is a good friend of mine here in the Miami area, and his son suffers from type 1 diabetes. And, Andrew has struggled, and I've seen what the family has had to go through and how supportive they've been. And I've also seen what a great charity this is and how much it's helped, people. And listen, this is a charity where not a penny goes to anybody in salary, and this goes directly for research. And it's just something near and dear to Janine and I's hearts, and how many children suffer from diabetes, even young children, and how they can help with the equipment and more importantly, the research, and the really trying to overtake this terrible, this kills almost as many people, maybe if not more, than even heart disease. And we need to find a cure on this. And listen, Gene and I are mostly co-chair a lot of children's charities, whether it be cancer or eyesight and so on. But this is the new baby for us. And if you get a chance to take a look at the link, you can see Javier actually talks about it with his son. And I promise everybody out there, it's a worthwhile charity. Put my name on it if it wasn't. I think you guys know me, and I think it's a great cause to help a lot of people, young, middle aged, and old, that are tragically dying from diabetes.
Absolutely. Like I said, what an incredible foundation it is. I was reading a little bit more about it, and just so I could learn a little bit about what it's about. And I was really pleased when I saw, and I read a quote from one of its board members, who said that we're working to eradicate the disease of diabetes. They want to continue this work until they're working to shut the lights off. That was the quote. We want to shut our lights off, basically completely eradicate the reason for this foundation and why it exists to begin with. And it's clear that they're making strides to going forward with it. And on the video that you shared, which I'll share here in a moment in the chat, they actually talk about how even in this time during COVID, they have not slowed down one bit. They are continuing their hard work to try and find a cure for this deadly disease. This was you're a very family-oriented guy, as we've talked about many times during this interview so far. And it really touched me too that this foundation was actually formed by a number of South Florida families back in the early 70s, and it's continuing its great work today.
It really isn't. Nobody in my family really suffers from diabetes. My wife's family, my father-in-law had it, but that's not the reason that we're in there, because our families have had any problems with diabetes. It's just I know so many diabetics, and I know what they have to go through, whether it be insulin or losing a foot or an arm or having, it's just it's a terrible disease. And I really think that this foundation's done a phenomenal job, and I see where the monies are going to. And that's the thing that I'm most proud of. And any charity that I'm involved in, if it's somebody taking a big salary or there's a lot of overhead, I really lose interest in it. It's something like this where I know it's going directly to the people and directly to research. It's something that's essential. And I ask everybody, I don't care if you get $5 or $10, everything helps when you accumulate it. And listen, let's find a cure for this thing. And they're making big inroads. And I'm really happy about seeing that. We see these incredible doctors that are volunteering a lot of their own time to try to suffocate this terrible disease. I think it's phenomenal. I asked the cigar community to help us out. I know we're a charitable group and we do a lot of things that we don't get credit for, but this is something I ask you all if you can please help. It's very, very important. And Javier and the Holtz family, they're great people, and they're near and dear friends to the Perdomo family. And there's no reason that I would ask for something like this if I didn't believe it from my heart.
It's really terrific. Thank you so much. And again, we're encouraging everyone tonight, if you feel so called, please give often. And this is an incredible organization. I'm posting that video link right now in the chat. Please take a look at it. It's an incredible story. Javier's story is incredible. And the work that this institute is doing to eradicate this deadly disease is just unparalleled compared to some of the other organizations that I've seen. Great organizations out there, don't get me wrong. But this is why I really love this segment. I'm really pleased to do it, because it's been, it's been really eye-opening to see what really is, really is close to our hearts of our guests and everything. And it's been, like I said, it's just been an incredible experience seeing what people are feeling called to spotlight, to highlight, and to raise money for. And so they're matching up to $200,000 by December 31st. And I'll be making a donation later tonight. Absolutely. And as I've pledged to give to every foundation and every charity that's going to be mentioned on my show this year for the next 12 months. Money unfortunately doesn't grow on trees, and I don't have much to give, but I am pledging to give to every single charity, and I'm proud. I'm proud to give to this one. I'm really excited for the work that they're doing.
You're a good man. I know what you've gone through, and I really appreciate it.
So, really, you mentioned him already just a brief moment ago, but I wanted to take the time to spotlight. You also alluded to the incredible tenure that your employees have with Perdomo, and this is for those who aren't aware, the premium cigar industry historically and typically is an industry of relatively high turnover. A lot of people change companies, or a lot of people come in and out of the industry, and and there's a lot of turnover in this particular industry. But Perdomo Cigars has been kind of an anomaly, if you don't mind me saying that, Nick, in the sense that you guys really hold on to your employees, and you've alluded to a number of reasons why here in a little bit. Previously, excuse me, but 19.6, I believe, is the average tenure of your employee. Is that correct?
19 point, almost 19.8 now, but yeah, it's I'm very proud of it. It's an anomaly that I'm extremely proud of.
And one of those team members is your good friend and longtime I guess teammate is a really not a very just term, but I'll use it here in any case. But Arthur Kemper, your vice president, who's actually next in line to take over the company. And he had recently celebrated 20 years with the company. Now, as you mentioned, you're a very family-oriented guy, and your son Nicholas III, your wife Janine, your father before him, your brother as well. They're all members of this company that work just as hard as you do to make sure that Perdomo cigars are great from seed to cigar. And Arthur's been with you almost the entire way. What was it like to celebrate his recent 20th anniversary with the company, and what's that relationship been like over the last 2 decades?
It was touching. Not only is he a phenomenal man, but he's also a phenomenal family man, a great father, a great husband, and just what a teammate to have. And that's a great analogy. He is a phenomenal teammate. There's no the word no doesn't exist with Arthur. He's just he's really remarkable. I never use the word amazing much, but he's really amazing. He's takes a lot of stress off my plate. And Bear, when you have a guy who loves your company as much as you do, and fights for it every day, I mean, that's such a special employee. He's more an employee. He's like a member of my family. I love him, and I'm so proud and I'm honored and privileged that he's been working for the company for 20 years. And he's like a bottle of good wine, man. He gets better with age. We're really proud of him, and I know my whole family loves him. My son Nicholas was calling him Mr. Arthur until about 3 years ago, and I thought he was a great example to my son, and I think he still is. And I think my son, as a matter of fact, I know it. My son looks up to him and has a tremendous amount of respect for him because he deems it. And we're very blessed to have him, and I wouldn't trade him for anything.
So tell us a little bit more about Arthur's story. So how did he start with the company? Did you bring him in as this right-hand man from the very beginning, or did he kind of work his way up to the position that he now holds for you?
Look, Arthur's the great success story. He started from the bottom and went up. He was a retailer, Club Humidor in San Antonio, Texas. Comes from a great family himself, with his mom and dad and his sisters and his late brother. And they're just honorable people. And sometimes a great leader sees great opportunity and also sees something that's special. And he was something that was special from an early time on. We brought him on initially to retail a store for us in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. It didn't come through, but I certainly wasn't going to lose him. He had just gotten married, and he really walked the walk. And what happened was he just kept building himself up. And I said, hey, if you stick next to me, I think you're going to go to places. And I remember the alarm company would call me up and say, hey, there's a guy working. It's 9:30 at night. And I'd look on the phone. It would be Arthur. He wasn't doing it and tell me, hey, I'm working till 10 o'clock and try to get credit. I would have never known about it, one for the alarm company. This is a guy that he's a workhorse, and he's relentless, like many of us are, but he's just got it. He has so many great attributes from just being not only a great family man, but not only a great employee, but a great teacher, a great salesman. I mean, he's made our sales people better. The packaging that you see, I really got to give him the credit for it. The merchandising, the ideas, where him and I have spent countless of hours. I'm more proud of him than I ever have. I really love him dearly. My whole family does, and I'm so proud of him. Listen, I've had workers that work for me for over 20 years, 25 years, but he's really so special. I could brag on Arthur for months if you wanted to, and tell you the stories on how special he is. He's a great right-hand man. I trust him with everything in the company, and that's about the greatest compliment I can give to someone. And I think when I go out on the when I go out on the retirement path, I think we're going to be on great hands. He'll be the next president of our company, and he'll lead us. He'll lead us right in the right direction and continue helping us grow.
So I know we've mentioned your wife Janine, who's worked by your side all these years, and I know that you guys are incredibly proud of your family, your children, and your son now has joined the company formally, but he's been with the company, let's just face it, since he was a child as well. But Nicholas the third, now your national sales director, talk about a little bit. When did he to formalize this thing? When did he first come to you and said, Dad, I want to be a part of this? What was that conversation like, or was it a conversation at all? Did it just transpire organically?
Yeah, that conversation started when he was like 6 years old, to be honest with you. And he worked his ass off in Nicaragua, and he wanted to learn. And I said, look, if you want to learn, you can learn. And he spent a lot of summers with my dad and Aristis Garcia and Sarah Gonzalez. I mean, three icons in the industry, and he just loved it. And I remember bringing him to the trade shows when he was younger, and I'd always give him the toughest customers. And I said, "You're going to walk the walk." And he's really done every single. We talk about there's 3,054 steps. He's done every one of them. He's from planting tobacco to emptying containers and going out on the road. And let me tell you something. I'm very proud of my sales team. They've known him since he was a little kid, and now they work for him, and they've all taken to it, you know, perfectly. I remember John Allen, one of our salesmen, which said he's not your normal 27-year-old kid at the time. Nicholas is really more comfortable, being with somebody of our age, or my age. You're a lot younger than I am, than he is his own, because I brought him everywhere. And I trained him. Look, it ain't easy being Nick Perdomo's son, I can tell you that, because I was hard on him. I didn't want anybody to say, hey, he's Nick's son. I wanted him to really blaze his own path. And I was tough on him purposely, maybe a little too tough, but I did it because I wanted him to earn it, and he certainly did earn it. And I'm proud of him. And he's a phenomenal director of sales. He works at the best sales team in the industry, and he's got these guys clicking on all cylinders. I think they have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He's come up with great ideas, have been extremely profitable to the company. For example, the bag display that you see all across America, my son designed that together with a retailer in Lakeland, Florida, believe it or not, who worked in the Publix supermarket chain. And he said, Dad, give me a shot on this. And we did. And today it's been a humongous success for the company. And my son designed that. And I'm really proud of him. And he's just relentless in his work attitude. Normally they always say, your son is either going to make your company or destroy your company. I think my son's going to continue catapulting our company. And under his tutelage in the last 2 years, sales have continuously climbed. We had a record year the first year under his leadership, and this year is the record of all records that we're having. And I got to give him a lot of credit. So I'm very proud of Nicholas. And I'm also very proud of my daughter, Natalie, who's finishing up law school. And who knows, she might be helping us out with FDA legislation. She's super sharp. She's doing extremely well at the University of Miami. Both my kids are married. I love them both, and I'm extremely proud of both of them. They're fantastic. And I also love my son-in-law and my daughter-in-law. So I'm a real blessed man, Bear, let me tell you.
No, it definitely seems as so. It's kind of, you mentioned the pride that you have in children. I'm a father as well, and while my children are much younger than yours, I really look to you and a lot of the fathers and mothers in this industry for the reverence that they hold for their own children, and what they expect from them. They love them unconditionally, yes, but they want great things for them, and they encourage them in the best ways possible. And some follow their parents' footsteps, and some don't. But no matter what I've seen is the unrelentless passion and love that they have for their children, and you're no different. And it's plain to see why your children are successful as they are in their chosen endeavors, because of the example that you and Janine set. We've mentioned your wife Janine a couple of times, but Janine's not just, again, to mention your words just a second ago, you didn't want Nick to be Nick's son. Janine isn't just Nick's wife. She's blazed her own trail in this industry as well. She's been recognized by her peers, and she's been recognized by other outlets as well as an incredible pillar of this industry. How is it meant to you to see her grow as well as you during these past 30 years and what you guys have built together?
Incredible. We've been married almost 32 years. She's a wonderful wife and a wonderful mother. She's been with me through thick and thin. Believe me, when you start a business, I'm not telling you something you don't know. We went through a tremendous amount of struggles. She was there with me every day, whether it was to get a second job while we were struggling. I mean, listen, nothing's easy. I remember that, I worked for 17 years without taking a day off, and that's nothing special. Everybody who started a business has done the same thing. But my wife, instead of complaining, was always supportive and always with me thick and thin. And even these days where we're at right now, we're one of the largest cigar manufacturers in the world. She diligently comes into work every single day, and has been a great example for my children. Not only as a great mother, but also as a great provider. And I'm equally as proud of her. She's a wonderful woman, and she's my backbone, and she has supported me in my business from day one and continues doing it. So I'm really blessed when you look at everything that I have. God has been so good to me and to our family, Bear. And listen, I'm proud of you too. I look at your Facebook post. I see you and those kids and how proud you are too. So I know you're a hell of a father, and I know how much love that you have for your kids. That's why I tell kids today, listen, just honor your mother and father and just listen to what they have to tell you. Nobody loves you more than they do. And I'm not telling a lie. I'm telling the truth, right? I mean, really.
No, I pass along something to my son every night. That's something that my own father said to me, and I didn't quite get it. I didn't quite get it until I became a father. But my father used to always say to me, "Now don't," and he would close every phone conversation, every time he would say goodnight to me, every time that he would leave for work, he would always say, "Son, don't forget how much I love you."
It's awesome. I do the same thing. My dad did the same thing with me. And I trust, and I have no doubt you're doing the same thing with your kids. It's so influential. And there's nothing wrong with telling your children how much you love them every single day. And that's a great thing that your dad did and does.
Absolutely. The 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 last thing I wanted to mention specifically about your family, Nick, was just, we talk about the legacy that your son is elected to continue working alongside with you, and Natalie may choose to do the same thing. Um, and you've built up such a legacy, like I said, over the last, almost 30 years at this point. And as you've mentioned several times, you're nowhere near done. If we could play some lemonade on this incredible, difficult year that it's been, what I have noticed, you mentioned my Facebook post recently. That's something that I've actually noticed about yours is you're able to spend, for the first time in a long time, you're able to spend a lot of time with Janine, and I got to tell you, very personally, it's actually meant a lot to me personally, and to see someone like you who's been able to really enjoy their time with their spouse when you've worked so hard your entire life, and you haven't been able to spend that much quality time with her, and now you've been able to do it. What has this time meant to you as a family man, since you are so family oriented, to finally give back, finally give that time that you weren't able to because you've been working so hard all these years?
Well, it's been great. We've all spent a tremendous amount of time with each other even before this because we all work together. I'm in this unique situation where my brother works for me, my mother works for me, my uncle, he just retired, 87 years old, who worked for the company. My son, I get to see my family every single day at the office. What a blessing that is, and because Natalie is at the University of Miami, and they're doing everything by computer now. She's in the office every day because she doesn't want to stay home. So how blessed am I? I literally get to see my wife, kids, my mother, my brother every single day of the week. And I'm good with that. Working with family's not easy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've been blessed that it works. It works great for us, and we work wholeheartedly. So I spent a little more time because I haven't been able to travel much, but as much as I normally do. The last 4 months, finally, I've been able to get on the road. Thank God I test. I test negative. And our factory, thank God, everybody in Nicaragua has been fine. We really had no COVID cases I've even known about around the area. So if you've been to our factory, everybody will tell you our factory's antiseptic anyway. I'm a germ freak as it is. So, we freeze everything. Our rollers have to wash their hands 7 times a day, basically on every hour. And I'm proud of that. And we held really, really healthy standards. We have our own doctor on board, and we provide very good medical attention to our workforce. But thank God nobody's been ill. whether here or in Nicaragua. And we continue working harder than ever. And listen, we're Americans. We fight through everything. We always have, and we'll fight through this. And all I can tell you and the audience is every one of you are essential. Don't let the government ever tell you you're not essential. That's a bunch of crap.
Absolutely. You know, Nick, I've got a couple more questions to close out the evening, and then we'll have our final question here in a moment called our curveball segment. But I always want to take this time to thank my guests because it really means a lot to me. Sundays are always family day, and you know, even in the time of COVID and everything, again, time with family is even just as precious as it is when you're on the road. You know, 40 weeks out of the year or whatever. But it really means a lot for you to sit down with me tonight, share your journey, share your thoughts, share your opinions, and bless my audience with all your words of wisdom. So I really just want to take a moment again to thank you for all the time that you've given me tonight. It truly cannot thank you enough. It's beyond words how grateful I am for you. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bear. It's beyond a pleasure to talk to you and to the audience out there. It's more so a privilege that I'm able to do this. So please, the thanks comes from me.
So you mentioned the government just a moment ago, and one would be remiss not to mention while the FDA has presented a lot of struggles and a lot of challenges for you and your colleagues in the industry, all of us, from consumers alike to the manufacturers like yourself over the last few years. But we did have a great victory earlier this year. We've had a number of victories actually in 2020 for the cigar industry, starting with the warning labels, and most recently with basically the not getting rid of, so it's certainly not going anywhere, but basically putting aside for the time being the substantial equivalence that would need to be put forth by a number of companies. Now you're in a very unique position because substantial equivalence actually was not going to be as challenging for you as it was going to, certainly challenging in itself, but it was not going to be as challenging as it was for a lot of other manufacturers. Because of the consistency and the amazing products that you guys have churned out for the last 20 plus years. But even with that decision, I mean, did this have the relief on you that it did on so many other people in the industry?
Well, a little bit, of course. The government regulation is never good for anybody in business. Look, we did everything from the get-go correctly with the FDA, together with our law team. We didn't spare any expense, and we wanted to be above board on everything. And we hit the ground running as soon as this hit. Arthur Kemper and my wife Janine, they put a tremendous amount of man hours together with our lawyers to get this done. And we're blessed today. Pretty much every single brand that we have, our whole portfolio is grandfathered, which means our consumers are going to be able to enjoy our products for years to come. Without government regulation, and our retailers are going to be able to probably continue selling all their Perdomo cigars without government regulation, because we did everything the right way. And listen, I started from a garage, so I don't want regulatory damage on anybody, for that matter, any of my competition, because I know how hard it was to start like they are. But I'm proud that our company did everything they needed to do and did everything the FDA requested. And because, like you said earlier, our brands have such longevity, it really didn't affect me so much, except the amount of paperwork to prove that I've been in business for so long and that I've had these brand marks for so long, and we've got it through. But it was a tremendous amount of work in the last 5 years that we've been working on this. But thank God we see light at the end of the tunnel, with this regulation, hopefully.
I remember a quote that you said during an interview that you gave where you were talking about government interference in business. And you said, there's a lot of reasons why one should go out of business. This is to quote your words, and if I'm paraphrasing, I apologize, but I believe I got it right. There's a number of reasons you should go out of business. And if you make a poor product or if you're disingenuous, but you shouldn't be put out of business by your own government. Am I capturing your words accurately? And how do you feel about that if I am?
Spot on. I think that when your government, someone asked me who's my biggest competition. I said, unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer is, and it's hard to beat those guys because, they have the purse strings. But And they believe in regulating and taxing every business to oblivion. But, you know, our business is so tiny, and I don't want any business, big, small, or large, to be regulated. Let businesses continue. Let them prosper. They produce a tremendous amount of employment, and their employees are very happy to work for these companies. I mean, business is the backbone of America, and now you have politicians trying to destroy it. Give me a break. Yeah, they are. You hit it spot on there.
You know, it really is. It really is tragic in a lot of ways that, you know, companies that haven't been as diligent as you and haven't done it, you know, the Perdomo way, you know, for all these years, or even younger companies that, you know, just haven't had a chance to do it the quote unquote Perdomo way, or even something close to it because of the longevity that they just don't have in comparison to you. It really is tragic that we were actually really looking at, and still are to a certain effect, looking at losing, you know, parts of this industry simply because, you know, an entity wants to govern it and has absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
It's like the ingredients listing. I mean, we use distilled water, fruit pectin, and air cured tobacco, and some other tobacco products have tens of thousands of chemicals. And I remember an FDA inspector called me up, and the book was this thick, and I wrote 3 things, and he said, "Where are all the chemicals?" I said, "We don't use any." And he said, "Well, where's all the ingredients?" I said, "We don't use any. Those are the only 3 things we do: air cured tobacco, distilled water, and a fruit pack that they use and everything. It's to seal the cigars." So he said, "I thought cigars were like cigarettes." I said, "That's why you work for the FDA." You know, so
What did he say to that?
He didn't say anything, but it's true. They have no due diligence. All they're looking for is taxing and regulating, and that's a shame, you know. But we'll continue fighting through it. That's the only thing we can do. And now with a lot of these cities who have bankrupted themselves by shutting everybody down for so long, they're gonna come after getting, you know, every states that did things right to pay for it. And unfortunately, with this new administration, you and I are probably
going to come after our industry because we're low hanging fruit and we're an easy target. So I'm hoping not, but I've seen it before with politics. It's sad.
I think your audio is cutting out a little bit, Nick. Can you say something?
Yeah, my headsets went out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little faint. So
yeah, I'll try to talk as loud as I can. I've lost. They've gone out of power.
No problem. No problem. We're on our last question anyway, Nick. This is really this kind of goes hand in hand with FDA, obviously, with the release of the Pfizer vaccine now to the public. You know, we're going to start seeing a lot of those people take these vaccines, and this kind of is really looks to be like the signal of the beginning of the end of this tumultuous year that we've all been a part of. And so, you know, with that, even just a few weeks ago, you know, the cancellation of the PCA trade show was still very raw to a lot of us, and the PCA trade show for 2021 was still very much in flux. But this kind of paints a nice little bright light at the end of the tunnel that potentially we could have a trade show in 2021, even where even a couple of weeks ago it didn't look very good. We're certainly not out of the woods yet. But do you think that there's going to be a 2021 PCA trade show?
I hope so. I've been a member for 26 years. I support 100%. I hope we have the TPE show also, which was a huge success for us in May of this year. So I'm sorry, January this year. So listen, we want to go out and see our retailers, and we want to show them our new goods. We have a set of new goods that are coming out here pretty soon. So we're hoping that both shows are going to be up. Hey, we got to get the country rolling again. We can't keep printing money. Your children or my children are going to be paying for this, and we can't be irresponsible for this. And I'm hoping we can get back to work. My state is wide open. Things are going good, and you know, the media keeps telling cases are going up. My son-in-law's mother's the head of the neonatal department at the second biggest hospital in the city of Miami, which As you know, we have a big city. And the press keeps saying that the beds are full. They're not full of COVID. They're full of people that have cancer, because believe it or not, people still have cancer and heart disease and diabetes. Not everything is COVID, and we've been putting this on the back burner, and we need to start talking about depression and suicide. And I don't really want to get too much into this, but it's about time we start moving. Hopefully this vaccine will start turning things around. But it's unfortunate how the world's changed because of this. You know, I'd hate to be on the dating scene right now and seeing a girl in a mask and trying to figure out what she looks like, you know. So.
Absolutely. Well, good news is on the horizon, it seems, and we're looking forward to a TPE show and a 2021 PCA trade show as well.
Me too.
Nick, to close out the evening, this is my curveball segment, and I call it my curveball. It's more like a softball typically, but I think I've come up with a pretty interesting one, given our recent discussion that you and I had around vitolas. And I noticed tonight that I finished my my Perdomo Reserve sun-grown 10th anniversary, and I'm on to now the Maduro, which I'm enjoying very thoroughly, and loved the sun-grown. It was absolutely incredible, totally worth the wait, as I had alluded to earlier. And the Maduro is certainly delivering as well. I think so far, I will have to say that I am favoring the sun-grown, which typically is not very typical of me. But they're both incredible. I'm really enjoying these cigars and look forward to smoking more and more of them. And you know, I know they're selling out, but hopefully I can get a little bit on the inside and get a little bit more of them, because they are certainly fantastic. But my curveball segment has to do with vitolas. Now, you and I had a recent discussion on an interview that I had the privilege of taking part of with you, with my good friend Will Cooper of Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, and we were talking about the difficulties of rolling a torpedo cigar. And I noticed that was the vitola that you chose tonight, was the torpedo. And so this could be a difficult question for you, considering I know how much pride that you take in every single cigar that your company manufactures. And you already kind of alluded to how much of a fan you like Lanceros, but as you mentioned, you certainly can't feed your family off of them. But if there's a torpedo if you could get rid of a single vitola in your current portfolio for any reason to your liking, which vitola would it be?
Oh, that's a hard question, because we're blessed. We don't really make a lot of different sizes. Most of our cigars have a 5-size line, and we've really truncated our size. We've gotten rid of a lot of sizes. So, oh geez, I love them all. I love Robustos, I love Toros, I love Churchills, I love Gordos, and of course I love Torpedoes. That's hard, but I think a lot of the sizes we got rid of. We had a Lancero. I think that's the one we get rid of, to be honest with you.
I figured that'd be the answer.
Yeah, unfortunately, sorry against my Lancero lovers, all 6 of you, but I think the sizes we have are in the sweet spot and vitolas, and that's what people really like. And I used to have 7 sizes, 8 sizes. I've really truncated them now to really I only have 5 sizes. The 10th anniversary Champagne's the only one where I have a Tubo, which is a 46 ring gauge, and I have a Corona, which is a 44 ring gauge. So
love that cigar.
And they sell extremely well. And but everything else I'm good with. So kind of a hard question. I'm sorry if I didn't answer to your liking, but I did my best. Trust me.
My answers are all my answers tonight, Nick, have been to my liking. I figured that was going to be your answer, but I thought I'd throw it out there, considering our recent discussion about torpedoes and how hard it is to make them. And unfortunately, as we talked about in the previous interview, it's sad, because as I mentioned in that interview before, I'm just not a fan overall. I'm very picky when it comes to torpedoes, just because I don't feel that a lot of them are manufactured well. Yours being one of the exceptions, obviously, to that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you tonight, but much like every other vitola that I've ever smoked of yours, incredible. Again, to the word of the night, consistent and in performance and in construction. It's just a fabulous cigar. And so I wish a lot more people would actually make them as well as you do, and a couple of other folks, because I think it is a lost art, and it's something that's very frustrating for a smoker that especially one where I love all Vitolas, I definitely gravitate more towards like the Robusto and Corona, as I said earlier, which I love that champagne Corona that you make.
But you're spot on. There's been a lot of bad torpedoes made, not by Perdomo, but just people don't understand how to finish the head of the cigar. I'm certainly not going to go out of my way to try to help that. Unfortunately, for our competition, you got to really take your time with them, and it's not a speed rush to make these cigars. But look, I was blessed with my father, Sarah Gonzalez, who made Monte Cristo #2s at HM, and who's our factory manager. She's the one who really built the torpedo lines for us. We've been making torpedoes since 1992. We've had really no complaints on them, but there's a certain way you got to make them, and you got to take your time, and you really got to think of that consumer. And if you do, I think you can make great cigars and great torpedoes. And I invite customers to try our torpedoes. I think they'll thoroughly enjoy them. I love them.
I second that, absolutely. Well, Nick, this has been an incredible take, and I can't thank you enough for spending over 2 hours with me this evening, just telling me about your journey, telling me about your story. I really want to encourage everyone. I just talked about how much I enjoyed them tonight. I really want to encourage you, if you guys have not tried the new Perdomo Reserve 10th anniversary sun-grown and the Maduro varietals, you really, really must go out and try them. If you can find them, they are selling like hotcakes. But as Nick has done his entire career, he's going to continue to produce excellent cigars. So they will find their way into the humidor eventually, and for you. And you definitely need to pick them up. These were incredible cigars tonight. Thank you, Nick.
Well, thank you, Bear. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the consumers for staying up late and listening to us. I really appreciate it.
As we bid everyone adieu, good night. We thank you so much for your tuning in. Again, as Nick mentioned, thank you to everyone who stayed up late with us, all your comments, all your likes, all your shares. We do really appreciate it. Be sure to stay tuned to our Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR, for upcoming guests. We're kicking off the new year, 2021, with our top 10 cigars of the year, and we've got some upcoming guests that'll be listed here shortly. Tune into our YouTube page as well, ELOSOFUMAR. And if you are listening to us later on, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. And if you already are a subscriber, I really encourage you to unsubscribe, but please don't forget to resubscribe, because that really helps my numbers, and that actually helps me bring on amazing guests like the iconic Nick Perdomo tonight. So thank you all to everyone out there. As always, I'm Bear Duplessis, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. This was our 150th take, and what a milestone it was. Thanks to our special guest, Nick Perdomo. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Bear.